Welcome back, everybody. The 60-day ceasefire agreement between the U.S. and Iran set to expire tomorrow as tensions remain high over the Strait of Hormuz, and the talks between Washington and Tehran remain uncertain at best. President Trump also warning Iran, saying he would hit back if attacked.
We're capable of really destroying the whole place. We don't want to do that. We have got economic sanctions against them like nobody's ever had before. We own, in the true sense, we own the Hormuz Strait. If they hit, we would hit back 100 times harder.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst live in Tel Aviv with the very latest. Hey, Trey.
Yeah, hey, Kevin, good afternoon. Monday will mark 60 days since the Memorandum of Understanding was signed between the United States and Iran, and technically it is set to expire. There are no reports of serious diplomatic progress to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and address Iran's nuclear ambitions. And this weekend, Iran continued attacks in the Strait. On Saturday, a bulk carrier reported being hit by an unknown projectile. A day prior, an Emirati oil vessel was also targeted. President Trump spoke on Friday about the conflict with Iran and the Strait of Hormuz.
After we finish defeating Iran, which is being very badly defeated, pretty soon I'll be declaring the Hormuz Strait a territory of the United States. Essentially, that's what it is. We have the blockade. No ships get through unless we want them to.
With a focus on Iran, we're also tracking the latest developments between Israel and Iran-backed Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah violated the ceasefire over the weekend, wounding 3 Israeli soldiers. This prompted Israel to launch a new round of strikes against targets in southern Lebanon.
Hezbollah committed 2 major violations today. They struck Israeli troops who were operating in the security zone in contravention of the ceasefire agreement. And then when Israel responded, they moved civilians inside their terrorist headquarters. They used their own civilians as human shields so that later on they could point at Israel and say that Israel is targeting civilians, which we are not doing.
Overnight, the IDF warned residents of northern Israel to be prepared for loud explosions throughout the night as operations against Hezbollah continued. Kevin?
Great, Trey Yingst for us. Trey, be safe. Thank you as always. Appreciate your time today. For more on the U.S. Iran ceasefire deadline, we want to welcome Kiron Skinner, Fox News contributor, to the program today. Kiron, it's always a pleasure to have your wisdom on this particular topic, and I think it goes without saying that most people feel like this really wasn't much of a ceasefire when you frankly consider the U.S. hit them, they hit some ships. Does it really mean anything to you that the ceasefire deadline is effectively over tomorrow?
It does mean something. The ceasefire broke down in the first instance because the Tehran government violated it with continual menacing of ships and any activity through the Strait of Hormuz. So it starts with them. And when President Trump caught up to what they were doing, he reimposed sanctions and economic sanctions, and he has declared he will even double down on those sanctions, making them much more restrictive than the IRGC and the government have ever seen. So it starts with a rogue regime that refuses to understand and support international conventions. What's at stake right now, when you think about it in this war, Kevin, is the fact that we have one nation that is violating a fundamental norm of the international system, and that is free, open, and safe navigation of the seas.
Right, international
and it does
waters,
not
that's
want
right.
that. Yes, and it does not want that to happen. And as a result, it is holding the world hostage. We're in a global hostage crisis. That's the way I've been putting it lately. Due to one nation, it's impossible to negotiate with them until they understand the level of pain that can be inflicted on them. And that's what President Trump is prepared to do on the non-kinetic side with the new round of sanctions and really the new round of organizing of nations of goodwill against this government.
We've got about 45 seconds, but I did want to get you to weigh in on this. I liked how you put it, a global hostage crisis, and yet we would need global cooperation to really make a big difference, especially as the president continues to affect more economic pressure. But frankly, I think it goes without saying, it's not just China, it's not just Russia, it's some of the actors in Europe who say one thing out of one side of their mouth and then do something else to try to prop up the regime as well. What can we do to get a global, frankly, global cooperation in making sure that this thing ends sooner than later by applying all the economic pressure as well?
You're spot on with that question, and in fact, it's happening organically. Even if the Europeans, the Russians, and the Chinese aren't where they need to be on the column of freedom, the rest of the world is actually moving in that direction. Look at what the Mecca Accord has done with the Saudis, the Turks, the Pakistanis coming together in a mutual defense pact, Iraq and Jordan trying to open a pipeline, the Saudis beefing up at an unusual rate the East-West pipeline. Iran is being encircled by new actors that are coming together in unprecedented ways to say, we want freedom. And then the non-OPEC countries that are doing unexpected increases in their oil exploration. Brazil, for example, Guyana, the big surprise of the last 10 years. They're just new zones of freedom that are emerging, and that supports the United States and Israel. And it's not being directed by the U.S. or Israel. As I just said, this is an organic response to the isolation that Iran finds itself in.
I love that, because I think ultimately the international community really wants peace in the region, and if it can't rely on the Iranians to step back and respect international waters, collectively, we're going to all have to figure out a way to get around it. And that seems to be happening both organically and through some strategic planning between the U.S. and our partners in the region. Kiron Skinner, a great pleasure, my friend. Thank you, as always, for your time on a weekend. Have a good one.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.